So elsewhere, Republican lawmakers are shrugging off recent disapproval and outrage at town hall events, instead blaming the backlash on what they say are paid troublemakers.
It is a Doge program
The people would like to know what you, congressmen, and your fellow congressmen are going to do to rein in the megalomaniac in the White House.
I remember having the same discussion with Republicans when Biden was elected. A lot of you would probably say those January 6s who are yelling just as loud as you.
President Trump took to social media yesterday to claim, without any evidence, that these troublemakers were attending and disrupting town hall meetings as part of a game for Democrats. Similar sentiments were expressed last week by House Speaker Mike Johnson, who claimed those speaking out against GOP policies were simply unhappy Dems.
Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. My guest today is Jake Auchincloss, who represents Massachusetts' 4th Congressional District. He's a Marine Corps veteran and a rising star in the Democratic Party. Representative Auchincloss, let's get right to it. Why are the Democrats paying agitators to give your hardworking Republican colleagues a hard time at these town halls?
That is certainly the GOP talking point they want the media to run with, right? And Fox News is happy to carry their water, but I don't think the voters will. If members of Congress will not communicate with their constituents through town halls and Q&A sessions, their constituents are going to communicate with them at the ballot box come next November. Because what Republicans are trying to do is profoundly unpopular, and they don't want to talk about it. They want to talk about Doge. They want to talk about USAID. They want to talk about Donald Trump's meme coin or entertaining tweet of the day. They don't want to talk about the fact that they are paying to give tax cuts for people who don't need tax cuts by cutting health care for people who do need health care.
I think one of the easiest tells is that Democrats are doing town halls and they're not getting lit up nearly the way Republicans are, right?
I'm doing 2 tomorrow. I'm going to Fall River, the biggest city in my district, which voted for Donald Trump in 2024. I will be there tomorrow talking to my constituents about taxes, about healthcare, about Ukraine, about anything they want to talk about.
So this isn't a generalized anger at politicians. We have that all the time, right? You guys aren't exactly the most popular group in American society. That's sort of table stakes for our political culture. The anger we're seeing at these town halls is directed specifically at Republicans for refusing to stand up to their president, and more specifically to these drastic, untargeted, cruel cuts of agencies that it turns out Americans need.
That's right. But it's not enough for Democrats to resist or oppose what Donald Trump and congressional Republicans are doing. We also need to go on offense. We need to have our own ideas, and we need to draw a sharp contrast between the chaos and the corruption of the Trump administration, which is going to raise costs for health insurance, for home insurance, for car insurance, for utilities, for home buying, and our own ideas for how we are going to lower the cost of living and provide excellent education and government services.
Talk to me about what that offense looks like, because I'm sure you're hearing it as well. If there is a blanket critique of Democrats right now, it's about the feeling that they don't share our rage at what's happening. At least they're not expressing it. How do we get more of that out of you and your colleagues?
Let me put 2 ideas out there, both related to taxes. This year is going to be spent talking about taxes, so I think Democrats need our own bold ideas on taxes. Let me provide 2. First of all, let's say to the congressional Republicans, you know what? We'll work with you on extending these Trump tax cuts, but we have a simple premise. We only want to extend them for the middle class. The supermajority of the benefits of the Trump tax cuts, north of 80% by some calculations, went to the 1%. About 20% of the benefits went to the middle or working class. Democrats can say, we will extend the middle class tax cuts portion of this, and Republicans will help you pay for them also, because we don't believe in expanding the federal deficit. But we are not going to lower taxes for the 1%, and we're not going to gut health care to pay for any of this. I offered that to a Republican member of Georgia in a recent debate on News Nation. You know what his response was? You cannot make this stuff up. His response was, well, billionaires are so good at hiding their money that it doesn't even make sense to try to tax them. That was his response. Second idea for you, Ken, based on taxes. Let's take that $12 trillion of market capitalization that sat at Donald Trump's inaugural address, the Metas, the TikToks, the X's. Let's levy a 50% tax on their digital advertising revenue, which is at least $250 billion a year in the United States alone, and use that to fund education for every kid in this country, one-on-one tutoring, reading, writing, mathematics, to get them back up to grade level after the disastrous school closures. We owe that to our kids, and the social media corporations should pay for it because they're the ones who have been attention fracking our kids for the last 15 years, making them miserable.
Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Check out the new trailer for Valor Media Network. Together, we can take on Joe Rogan and his Manosphere bros and win. Click the link below to subscribe to Valor Media Network and share it with a friend. Thanks, Midas Mighty. We got this.
There's not enough men like me who do whatever they want.
Are you sick of it yet?
Those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty.
The anger.
Charlie. I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live as a capitalist.
The hate.
And we have a system of checks and balances. That's a good one. That's really funny. We do?
The idea that to be a man, you have to be a bully.
Fuck you!
We should be better than this.
Females don't have independent thought. They don't come up with anything.
Our kids deserve better than this.
It's like women want equal rights when it's convenient, but then they still want the door open for them.
So help us change it. Subscribe to Valor Media Network, where you can find shows on sports, men's health, and patriotism without the resentment and division.
True strength is about discipline, resilience, and service.
If you've wondered where all the positive role models are, especially for young men, check out Navy SEAL Dan Barkov and Commander Bobby Jones as they share stories of service and sacrifice.
Being good at being a man is about what you do for others and not what you do for yourself.
Listen to Jason Kander and co-hosts Ravi Gupta and Adisu Demisi give you the inside track on the politics of sports.
I just want to take back what I said about the Bills. No, because in all honesty, your team seems to have gotten the vaccination thing right. Okay. My team seems to be struggling with it.
These shows and many more from Valor Media Network prove that you don't have to be an asshole to connect with young men today. Subscribe to Valor Media Network today. I love the policy prescriptions. I think a lot of rank and file Dems could get on board with that. How do we signal, though, that these are not normal times? And how does the Democratic leadership signal that they get that something is fundamentally breaking in our civic life, in the social contract between the government, the Trump administration, and the American people? You were one of the vast majority of Democrats who did not vote to censure Al Green. I think a lot of us saw what he did during the president's address and applauded, because it was one of the few indications that there is an awareness that these are not normal times, and the response has to be extraordinary.
I don't think that a response, though, that is performative in that respect is actually going to help Democrats. I think the response that we need has to be specific, and it has to be substantive, and it has to be disciplined. And I understand the anger and the anxiety. I am hearing it from my constituents. I share it. I am concerned about the unilateral dismantlement of programs and services that Americans rely upon. I am concerned about the encroachment upon the judiciary and the legislature by an imperial executive. The best way that we box in this president is by winning next November at the ballot box. A majority in the House of Representatives for Democrats is the way to lame duck this guy. And to do that requires laser focus on his attacks on healthcare, his regressive tax policy, versus the chaos and the corruption emanating from his administration. Republicans want us talking about Doge. They want us talking about Elon Musk. That's not who we should be talking about. We have to keep this laser focused on congressional Republicans' subservience to an agenda that benefits a small amount of Americans on the backs of a huge majority of Americans. They don't want us to be disciplined in that respect. They want us to play fetch every time they throw something out in the daily barrage of flood the zone like Steve Bannon recommended. And so I'm not going to play along with that. I'm staying laser focused on Medicaid and on taxes.
My concern with sticking with the 2-year election cycle and focusing on the midterms is that folks are hurting now. The system is breaking down right now. I've got Ukrainian friends who are pleading with me for America to do something right now. And I feel like sometimes Democrats get stuck in the 2-year election cycle, and they hold their fire and they hold their resources. And sure, in 18 months, we're going to see the ads that show the veteran let go from the VA who voted for Trump, who realizes he was sold a bill of goods. That's all going to come out during that election cycle. But I feel like so many Americans, and Democrats in particular, are looking for that right now. They're looking for those expressions of not just legislative priorities, but leadership right now. And there's a difference between legislating and leading, and sometimes leading is performative.
Last weekend, I was on the Boston Common for a Stand for Ukraine rally with my Ukrainian and Ukrainian American constituents to make clear that what Donald Trump did in the Oval Office was one of the most shameful exchanges in American history, that we don't want Ukrainian minerals, we want Ukrainian freedom. Right after this conversation, I'm heading back into Boston for a Stand for Science rally with the principal investigators and researchers and young scientists throughout Greater Boston who are being hurt and demoralized by NIH cuts and by attacks on evidence-driven policy throughout health and human services. So I agree. We need to capture, we need to channel the rage, the anxiety that our constituents are feeling, and we need to give voice and heart to it. And we're doing that through leadership and through public demonstrations. We're doing that through oversight. As a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, my colleagues and I are battling RFK Jr. on the measles outbreak in Texas and Georgia, and holding our Republican colleagues to account for the fact that they will not put his feet to the fire for recommending the MMR vaccine to parents who are reluctant to get it. We are litigating and stopping many of his unlawful executive orders. So we got to do all the things, right? If they're going to flood the zone, we have to play zone defense, and we're going to do all the things. But that is different than allowing ourselves to be disoriented or fractured in response to their strategy, because that's what Steve Bannon wants. I mean, he literally said this in 2019. He said it again before the election. What we have to do is enter the administration with muzzle velocity policy dictums to get the Democrats on their back heels. I will not cooperate with Steve Bannon's strategy, because what Steve Bannon doesn't want the congressional Republicans to do, and he has said this repeatedly, is he has said, do not extend the tax cuts for the 1%. Just do it for the middle class. He has said, be careful about touching Medicaid. Because Steve Bannon ain't no fool, and he knows this stuff is unpopular. That's what Donald Trump and congressional Republicans don't want us talking about, which is exactly why we have to be laser focused.
Fair enough. I am glad that you're doing those town halls. In just the last week, I've seen 2 town halls just spontaneously from the grassroots up be organized here in my district. The R's aren't going to show up. I'm going to be there, though. And I would just encourage you to encourage your Democratic colleagues to take the lead, to step out like you are.
You know what we should do, Ken? Democrats who have adjacent districts that are Republican held, Democratic members of Congress should be doing town halls in their Republican members' districts.
Let's end with that. I could not agree more. That's where I want to go, right? I want Democrats to show that they're not afraid of their constituents. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Call that performative, if you will. I call it leadership, right?
No, that's constituent services.
That's right. Thank you so much, Representative Auchincloss. We'd love to have you back. And let us know how that town hall tomorrow night goes.
Appreciate you having me on, Ken.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.